This weekend, the iconic circuit of Zandvoort, surrounded by those rolling dunes off the Dutch coastline, sets the stage for round 4 of the F1 Academy 2024. It promises to be another highly competitive round where 16 of the world's greatest female racers will be starting the first and only qualifying session of the weekend, which sets the grid for both races. Let's take a look at this tight, twisty circuit. Plenty of challenges for these drivers. Keep an eye out for turn 8. We saw a few cars coming off there yesterday during both those practice sessions, and the banked corners. Plenty of different lines that the drivers can take, trying to always find the fastest way. It really is a firm favourite on the calendar. It is an absolute delight to be joining you here today, despite the weather. The crowds are here. They are hopefully going to be sheltered from the rain soon. It looks, according to the weather, that the rain will be stopping a little bit later today. Fingers crossed for that. My name is Nikki Shields. Alongside me in commentary is Joe Osborne. Joe, this is not really the conditions we wanted to start the morning off with. However, these drivers have actually had plenty of testing at this track in the rain. So actually, this kind of suits them. They know what they're doing in these kind of conditions.
Yeah, earlier in the year, the pre-season test was here at Zandvoort, and we had lots of weather there, that was for sure. We had all conditions, including wet, like you said. So some of the drivers have got their eye in, but that was quite a few months ago now, and many, many laps have passed. So they've got to be able to get their eye back in quickly. How will they do that? Well, visualization is a big thing these days with young drivers getting better and better at being able to picture their lap. That backed up with onboard video and data from those tests, they should be able to at least remember how the car felt underneath them last time in these conditions. Yesterday, we almost had two completely different weathers in the day. At the start of the day, super windy, track very dusty and green, not rubbered up. And then in FP2, we saw the times drop dramatically, didn't we, in almost perfect running conditions. So, yeah, very difficult. We did see some drivers scrub some wet tyres in at the end of FP1, one of them being this car in shot, Abby Pudding, championship leader. So she doesn't have to worry about scrubbing those tyres in. And that's so important in a session that the driver can just get straight on it with the tyre grip being already near optimal.
Yep, so she'll have a slight edge at the start of this session. It was interesting looking at the times from yesterday's practice session. We had a practice session in the morning and also in the afternoon, but it was Abby Pudding who managed to get the quickest time in both of those sessions. But interestingly, we did see Hamda Al-Khabazi and Jess Edgar on identical times in 3rd and 4th in that practice session. But now it's time to catch up with one of the drivers to see how they feel about these changing conditions.
If it rains, I'll probably have a smile on my face. I think being British, I'm used to them conditions, so I don't mind whatever it does, but some rain wouldn't be unwelcomed.
Well, there she has it. She's got the conditions she's asked for, which is just going to make her even more dominant. I mean, if we look at Abby Pulling's season so far, I mean, the last 4 races, she has taken pole position. She's had pole position back-to-back times. It's been pretty remarkable when it comes to her qualifying performance, and she is at the top of the leaderboard at the moment with 147 points. Her biggest contender at the moment is Dorian Pout and Chloe Chambers, joint on 81 points behind her. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on what Abby Pulling can do today. But there are 15 other drivers that are going to very much challenge her for the front row of this grid. We also do have our wild card driver with us today, Nina Gaidman. Now, in F1 Academy, at certain races, there is an opportunity to bring a local driver that has been handpicked to showcase their racing capabilities and performance. And this weekend, we are delighted to have Dutch driver Nina Gaidman here.
Yeah, really interesting to see how she gets on. It was very competitive, P7 in the first session, so I think she's going to do really well in these conditions.
So Leah Block, of course, has joined the Williams team. Has come from, well, a very different background, not in single-seater, but she's done a phenomenal job getting to grips with this new racing series for her. Obviously, F1 Academy is now in its 2nd year. Oh, we have a car stopped on track. That is the Visa Cash App car of Amna Al-Khabazi. Hopefully she can get that spun around and get out of the way as quickly as possible. but we do have a yellow flag at the moment in Sector 1.
Yeah, really difficult coming out of turn number 3. I'd imagine just a little bit too much wheel spin, potentially on the white line or curb. Those painted surfaces never offer as much grip in the wet, so very easily done. The hard bit here is the narrow nature of the circuit. How is she going to turn around? She's done really well to find reverse, and she hopefully can use this extra bit of tarmac on the inside, and then she should have an okay view to her right, and she's just going to have to try and just get it across. And I say she's done a mega job to get it in reverse, because race cars really don't like going into reverse. The gearboxes are just built for speed, no comfort or any drivability, so she would have had to cycle all the way to neutral and then select it as Bustamante grazes the wall there. You could just see her lock the front left under braking, did so well. That's the exact point we saw Danny Ricciardo go in and ultimately end up breaking his hand, so she did well to roll out the brake and keep that going. She had a tough day yesterday, a couple of gearbox problems, knew that they had to change the actuator twice on that gearbox, so hopefully that isn't the same problem causing her to have some handling issues going in. And they are now into the tricky turn number 8. You can see Leah Block has probably just caught her by 2 or 3 lengths over this part of the lap, but that will now be hurting Block, because she will be getting all of that spray that those Pirelli tyres are throwing up from the back of Bustamante's car right into her face. And it's so hard until you get an onboard to really visualize how much that spray blocks your view looking ahead.
Well, I mean, you can see, I have no idea how you guys do it, because it looks like you can't see anything. I mean, even, I think I was driving on the M25 recently, very similar experience to this, really. And there's so much spray, I couldn't see what I was doing. So obviously, naturally, you slow down. But in this situation, you can't slow down. You've got to go as fast as you possibly can. But I guess this is just something that, again, these drivers will learn, and that's why more experience on track in varying conditions is going to be so useful for them.
Definitely so, and I'd probably say Leah Block's rally pass is coming to fruition there. She's able to understand how the car feels underneath. We spoke to her yesterday, didn't we? And she said in her summer break she was out in some rally cars, and that feeling of the car moving underneath you, doesn't matter what sort of car it is, it's the same feeling, and that gives you confidence as we go on board with Maya Vogue all the way up to P1, 48.8. So they're currently about 12 seconds off a dry time, so there's maybe another 1.5 seconds to find ultimately. And let's see what Pulling can do coming into the final couple of corners. She is overall best in sectors 1 and 2 so far, and it'll be interesting to see if she can maybe get to the low 148s. That's where our envision pole probably is going to end up. I don't see the track drying enough to really change the ultimate pace of this track in this session.
No, I mean, effectively, you've got the F1 Academy drivers drying the track for everyone else later in the day, but let's see what Pulling can do. As expected, she has gone quickest so far with a 1 minute 47.403. Now, let's take a look at a replay with Bianca Bustamante to see what happened earlier on track.
Yeah, this is the exact point we ran on board, wasn't it? We got a great view of it on the interior, and now the exterior. You can see how close we actually lost her to the camera because the wall was shielding her. Just watch the front left lock up, and that causes the car not to turn. The direction of the car and the momentum is forwards, and that's where the car carried on going. You can still see it being very, very leery, and I think potentially still got that gearbox problem. If you're not able to downshift when you want, you don't slow the car down enough on the way into the corner, and the car basically says, no thank you, I can't carry that speed into this corner you're asking.
So now we can see that is Dorian Pat, who is, as we mentioned earlier, second in the standings at the moment. But she had a phenomenal start at the beginning of the season. She won the first race. She had a pole position and also took the second pole position in Jeddah. It's been a little bit harder for her in the last races that we saw in Catalonia and Barcelona with a P5 and P7, but she was recovering from an injury, so be interesting to see what she can do here today, whether she can be back at the front of the grid.
Yeah, go on board with Pulling. She was fastest in that wet pre-season test, a couple of seconds quicker than this, but the problem with the wet weather is it can always be a little bit different. Is she up on this lap? It's her ultimate best in 1, but not her best in 2. There is a yellow flag out in sector 1. I wonder who it is this time. Got to green, so no effect on any of the drivers pushing at the moment. Can she improve? She does. 47 flat. The track is starting to get a little quicker. All 16 cars clearing so much water. Potentially just a little bit more grip is coming to these drivers now.
Yeah, so 21 minutes still left to go in qualifying. Just a reminder that this sets the grid for both the races this weekend. We have a race later this afternoon and another race tomorrow morning. And it's the fastest time that will set the grid for race 1 and the second fastest time that will set the grid for race 2. Let's take a look at that Alcobazi moment a little bit earlier where we saw her spin and stop on track.
So car looks all good at this point, and yeah, just rotates a little more than she was expecting. She picked the throttle up, no traction control in these cars, and obviously that was earlier on in the session when the rear tyre temp definitely wouldn't have been optimal, and it just comes around quickly. You can see how quickly she put the opposite lock on to try and catch it, but the momentum of the car, that banking, just gives you so much extra grip. When it does go, it goes around really quickly and turned around quickly there as well to get on her way.
And Amna Alcobazi is, of course, one of the drivers that raced in F1 Academy last season. She had 2 wins and 2 podiums and finished 6th overall, but has very much come into this season saying, right, she needs to improve on that. She's P10 in the standings at the moment, so I think she'll be looking to improve on her results so far if she can match her result from last season. Let's have a look at what happened to Chloe Chambers here.
Running up nice and high, and again just touching that white line and just staying out the barrier. Again, did really well to dip the clutch so the car didn't stall, and then in the rejoin did kind of come in front of Lovenfoss, but I don't think that would attract a penalty because she quite rightly wants to get out of that situation and not create any more danger. I think Lovenfoss had a good enough view where she did everything all right, so I think that one shouldn't attract any steward's sort of inspection, in my opinion.
So it's a rather busy session for these drivers, managing to just keep themselves on track. With 20 minutes left to go, at what point are we going to really start to see competitive lap times? I mean, is this going to go right down to the last minute?
I think so, because they're the first cars out on track today. They had to really clear the majority of the standing water that settled here from the overnight rain as we go on board a block. I just want to see how the braking's looking, and there exactly, you can see it. The car snapped from the rear initially, then locked the front left, which is quite rare because normally the inside locks up. That's because it's slightly lighter, less loaded, so it's easily done. So the drivers will be playing around with their brake bars. She also tried braking off the racing line into T11 there to try and find a bit more grip. The normal dry racing line just gets slipperier and slipperier in these conditions, so drivers really have to work out where the grip is. Not always obvious, and I think that's why we're going to see improving times, because they will just get more and more reference. The track drying and also the tyre pressures coming up. We're probably looking at maybe the fastest drivers out there working their tyres that little bit harder. Tyre pressures can go too high and they may want to box, bleed the tyre pressures down and get them back to optimal conditions. At the moment, Pulling is on a very strong lap again. Currently 9/10 clear, Maya in second, but this could be enough to almost put her into her own little bracket and be a second away. Still flat through turn number 14, really helped by the banking there, 18 degrees through there, so still flat in these conditions is impressive. And yes, she goes even faster again, 46.7, amazing lap.
Yeah, incredible result there for Abby Pulling. We've obviously had a bit of a gap since the last race in Barcelona. A lot of the girls have been doing testing or sim practice. We also had a test here, so they've had quite a lot of experience at this track. How much of an advantage is it when you come into a race weekend and you've already got experience?
Massively so, just knowing the flow of the circuit, the nature of it. Some circuits are easier to learn than others, and Zandvoort is not an easy one. A lot of committed corners, so you need to know exactly where you can push and where you can't. But also the undulations mean that a lot of it is blind, so you're having to go on muscle memory of what is coming next and where you need to place the car. When you're doing 240 kilometers an hour, if the car is slightly offline, it's too late to make a major adjustment, and you've basically just got to roll with it and hope that you can save the situation and it doesn't escalate into a big issue, because you can have some big crashes here at Zandvoort.
Yeah, Leah Block's on a good lap at the moment, has improved in her Sector 1 and Sector 2. Let's see if she can move up from her current position, P3. Second at the moment. Great lap there from Leah Block.
Yeah, the only driver to really improve since we saw pulling, although we are seeing an improvement as well coming from Dorian Pan, now up to 3rd position. Nearly halfway through the session, the drivers and the engineers will be in conversation, just going, do we need to box? Because you obviously lose the lap coming in and the lap going out time-wise. So around here, you're going to be losing 3.5 minutes of your session if you do want to come in the pits to make an adjustment. So I think really we're going to see that in the next 3 to 4 minutes as your last chance on board of Chambers. You hear that bit of wheel spin, you see the rev lights on her dash really light up as the revs went through the roof. Car working away, going to try and open the steering wheel up. A car always accelerates better if the steering wheel is straight, so it's always a trade-off of not hitting the barrier on the exit but being as straight as you can. She's about to break the beam, and where can she get herself to? All the way up to P5 on a 1:48.426. Really good lap from Chambers there.
Yeah, Chloe Chambers, we've seen some brilliant performances over the course of this season from her. She is new in at F1 Academy, but it's very much one of the drivers who focuses on the data, really data-driven, likes to see those kind of breaking points. It's quite analytical. And talking of breaking points, I mean, obviously learning is so important, but what is it exactly that these drivers are looking at to improve each lap? You know, what are they using when it comes to identifying breaking points? What are they using when it comes to improving on the racing line each time?
So the reference points is a really good and valid, interesting point to talk about, because there's a lot of good physical reference points. You can see the polystyrene boards with the Heineken logo on the right there. They all have numbers so you can use them, 200, 150, 100, but some corners don't have them. So you end up picking up some quite random things. It can be like a mark in a crash barrier where someone's crashed, even a patch of weeds on the grass. So we're going to go on board. We're about to talk about these references. So they're the polystyrene boards. A little break maybe just before the 50 board for turn 2. Gets the car in well, a lot of oversteer, then run it up high. And my drivers may be using the sponsors on the right there to kind of go, wow, on the last part of the blue Aramco there, I'm going to let the car come back to the inside. Now through the sweeping dunes, turns 5 here. Flat over the hill on the right. You could be using that DHL Pirelli gantry, as your braking point here for T7. Get the car into the inside, then let it run wide. Have to be really careful of track limits here. You see a blue line, can't cross that on the exit curb. Again, just using the 100-metre board as your brake reference there, using the full dry line there. No real option to run wider around turn number 8. Getting it in, you can see the puddle that's holding there on the apex, and 9 drivers having to avoid that. That's probably deep enough to cause the car to aquaplane. There's a good wet line, V'ing the corner off, running in a little deeper. So that means you can brake later, get on the throttle even earlier. The wet line's a strange black art. There is never a right wet line. You have to experiment. The dry line is really quite physically right. You can see, again, we locked the brakes, didn't we? Straight on, use the escape road, and you can live to fight another day. But that dry line, the problem is it gets worn out. The surface gets smoother because it's driven on repeatedly. Oil, tyre gets sort of bedded into the surface. Going on board with pulling, you could see, again, under braking, locking the rear. She was on the dry line there. So I just wonder if there's slightly less grip. You have to compromise your entry angle and probably go a little more central. Be interesting to see if she's experimenting that lap on lap. Look at the drift Bustamante had through turn 2, loops it round into 3, full 360, did really well to modulate the brake there, because as we were going backwards, I wasn't sure if she was going to have enough momentum to swing it round, but she put the left hand down on the steering wheel, released the brake, gave it a quick jab and carried on. I mean, that was quite an impressive trick. If everyone had to do a joker lap, that was a good way of doing it.
And then we can see Nerea Marti in the Tommy Hilfiger car. Now, actually, Nerea Marti went really well here at the Zandvoort test. She and Abby Pulling were the only 2 drivers to top the timings in that Zandvoort test earlier in the season. So it's going to be interesting to see what she can do here this weekend. Again, it's been a great season for her so far. A tricky start in that first race, finishing P14. But since then, she's finished on the podium twice and is 4th in the championship at the moment on 63 points. So Nerea Marti is definitely one to watch. And a reminder again to everyone watching that obviously we've got the 10 liveries from the 10 F1 teams, but we also have 6 actually with the wildcard sponsored cars this race weekend, and Tommy Hilfiger is one of them, just, you know, showing the calibre of sponsors and brands that want to be involved in F1 Academy.
Yeah, the level is absolutely insane as we get a great shot of Pulling's right front tyre there. Still looking okay. The tread block looks like she's maybe got a problem with the radio. just gesticulating to the team that she can't hear, checking it's all plugged in, looks okay there. Unfortunately, these cars, obviously without having a roof or a windscreen, water goes absolutely everywhere, and electronics and water do not mix. So just having a look, maybe a bit of water has got in the system there, but that will be very annoying as a driver if you're unable to communicate with the pit wall. So she may be able to still talk to them, but she can't hear. But just going back to when we saw the wet tyres, they looked okay. The blocks, if it starts to get too hot, they start to chunk and grain up, and that's a horrible feeling as a driver, but it's still wet enough where they're staying in their operating window, essentially.
And tell us a little bit about the car, because it's effectively an F4 car, isn't it, with a slightly different wing. The chassis was designed by Tatus and the engine by Auto Technica, and it's a 1.4 litre engine, 174 brake horsepower and top speeds of 240 kilometres an hour.
I mean, you... Or does it rain stuff?
No, it's not raining now, so it's getting better, the circuit.
And it's a really interesting comment, that, because when you're in the car, you're getting so much spray from your own front tyres and potentially cars in front of you. It is really hard to tell if it's raining or not. So you normally actually just look at the track and see if the tyre marks from the cars in front of you are still there. And it's almost your only tell to really see, is it raining or has it actually stopped?
Back to the car, because you have driven something very similar. You've driven an F4 car. What do they like to drive? How do they handle?
They are surprisingly hard work. When you look at them, they're quite small, they look quite agile, but there's just not that much downforce on them. So the cars are always sliding around. So as a driver, you want to be on the limit, but it's very easy to go past the limit, which can either just make you slower or can obviously cause you to spin or worse. So it's why we're seeing the drivers working around so much. Bustamante probably has been the most spectacular one so far this weekend, with the issues I alluded to earlier, but also I just think it's her style. She seems to like quite an open car, the rear moving around. She can manipulate that rotation, and it's a very good way to have a car if you've got the car control, and we're seeing that at the moment. But again, just quite a clunky upshift there. You can just see her head on the upshift dive forward because it isn't going into gear as smoothly as I think it would. I think she's on 2 green sectors at the moment. This could be a lap that lifts her up from 14, but she is boxing. We heard on the radio that she was going to box. I'm surprised at that on 2 green sectors because that was an opportunity to improve with only 9 minutes remaining.
Do you think that just shows a bit of a sign of confidence that actually they know they're going to improve? So come in now, do whatever changes you need to do, and then just get out there as quickly as possible.
I hope you're right, but as a driver, I'd always want to finish a lap that could lift me up, could be a red flag, and the session doesn't restart, and you've lost that. But I think it's probably their last chance to pit and get back out, as you can actually see De House there in the Ford Red Bull car with brand new wets on. You see the white stickers just flicking around, so they think they can maybe find a bit more performance. Yes, you have to scrub the new tyre in, get rid of that releasing agent, the slippy chemical they put on the tyre to get it out of the mould in the production factory. But they are softest as they're new. They haven't had any heat cycles, so the rubber can afford more grip than any other point in its life cycle.
So obviously we've got 8 minutes left of qualifying, and then there's a relatively big gap before the race kicks off at 5 o'clock local time this afternoon. What work can the teams and the drivers do in between that, or is this it? You know, once you've done your last lap during this qualifying session, you've just got to sit back, relax, and try not to get too stressed about the pressure of the race later.
Depends on your qualifying to see which end of the spectrum you are. If you're Abby Pulling at the moment, you probably will relax a little bit and just make sure you're doing all the basics right, your start procedure, the setup of the car for the conditions that we all have in the first race this evening are correct. If you're further back, then you will go into the data, into the video with your driver coach, with your team, to try and find why can we not be at the front and how do we get there, basically. So yeah, time is a dangerous thing as a driver. Your mind can play tricks on yourself, and you can start to self-doubt yourself, which is almost the worst thing you can do for your own personal performance.
Tina Houseman there is improving, and oh wow, that's quite an incredible result. Up there in P2, we've got Nina Gaidman, who is our wild card driver, 8 tenths off Abby Pulling, but second fastest during this session. A great result. Let's keep an eye on that one. But Dorian Power at the moment has improved in sector 1, lost a bit of time in sector.
Give me info on the pit board.
Abby pulling there, saying obviously maybe her radio's not working or she needs more info on the pit board.
Yeah, super smart to tell the team, I want the pit board. Normally the pit board is hung out anyway, just as a matter of sort of course, but the radio does 99% of the communication these days. You can imagine doing 200 kilometers an hour past the pit wall itself, spotting the info is pretty hard. So for pulling, she'll just be red flag as well. We had sector 1 yellow, didn't we? So everyone's going to have to box. I'm surprised Hamda didn't box there. She pushed all the way to the line. That is some stuff that the race director does look.
Bianca Bustamante is in the wall. Bianca Bustamante has just changed to a new set of wet tyres in the pits, and look at that damage there to the front wing. Let's listen.
I'm sorry.
Well, that is all you can really say at this moment, isn't it? Obviously, a bit of a disappointment there, but there is plenty of time to hopefully recover that car in time for the race.
Yeah, it's gone in exactly at the point where we saw her get very close at the start of this session, and it's just so easy to do because you are all the way up high for your racing line, so you're afforded like 2.5 meters max. You can see those new tyres again that you said about Nikki, and just locks that front left, and this time wasn't able to release the brake to get the car to rotate. But you can see the cars behind, how close they run up there. So there's just not really any margin for error there, and maybe just coming from hot old wets to new cold wets has been the difference there, and it's just caught her out a little bit. But a fair amount of damage to the front right corner there, so there's going to be a bit of work for the ART team to get that repaired for the race later.
Yeah, and fingers crossed. I mean, I'm pretty sure it will, but if obviously that red flag continued till the end of the session, as we were talking about earlier, if you haven't set your qualifying lap, that's going to be it. Your opportunity on the grid has diminished.
Even more so for Bustamante. Obviously, I said I was surprised she boxed on a lap with 2 green sectors. We don't know where that would have been good enough to put her, but at the moment in 14th, it potentially could have got her into the top 10, which would have made her afternoon a little easier. 6 minutes remaining when we do go back to green. As they cross the line, start their first fly, it's probably only going to be 4 minutes 45 seconds to go, so they're going to get time for a maximum of 3 laps. Be interesting to see if anyone can improve in the time remaining.
Such a shame, because a small decision like that has such big consequences, because obviously, you know, qualifying, if she does qualify down in P14, that is obviously for both of the races. Therefore, potentially, we know how important qualifying position is here. She could go away from this weekend with no points at all. Let's hear from Nina Gademan, our wild card, about what she thinks of the circuit. Nina Gaben, we're not going to go to her at the moment. We are going to stick with some on-track action. Dorian Powell there. She's got the Iron Dames logo on her helmet as well. And Nina Gaben there in that gorgeous sort of rose gold livery, which is due to that collaboration that F1 Academy have with the Female Quotient. They are joining as a collaborator over the next few races until the end of the season, and it's just wonderful to have them part of the F1 Academy journey. Now we're actually going to go and hear from Nina Gaben. Or we're going to watch Bianca Bustamante's car be removed from the track instead.
The car is hanging, we left you hanging as well. You can see how clever the Zandvoort circuit are with their recovery.
I'm sure we'll hear from Nina at some point.
But yeah, they're super fast with recovery of that car. It should be clear and going back to green in the next 5 minutes, I would say.
This is just incredible, though. I mean, how they clear the track, A, so quickly, and B, using this crane over all of the barriers. It's quite a spectacle and an achievement. You know, massive credits to all the marshals that are involved in doing this.
Yeah, and it really shows you commitment from the Zandvoort circuit, doesn't it? We had 38 years here without doing any F1, and then since 2021, a huge investment actually owned the circuit, that is, by one of the Dutch royal family members. So we've done really well to get the investment in and get the facilities to a standard to hold the world's biggest motorsport event as a yearly spectacle now.
So, I mean, I'm assuming it's not going to take a huge amount of time to repair that car. It should be up and running in time for the race.
Yes, the only problem there is that the front right suspension, it can sometimes go inwards and puncture the tub. So they are designed to deform, so the wishbone should bend, and you can see that how the car is hanging down, and it doesn't look too bad. The impact speed was probably circa 70 kilometers an hour, so it should be fine. I would estimate probably 90 minutes to 120 minutes of repair time there for the ARTT.
So there is Nina Gademan with that incredible lap. She is P3 at the moment during qualifying, but let's try for a third time to hear from her earlier talking about the track.
Ooh, favourite part of the track? The last corner. We've had it at British F4 and on the sim always that I'm really quick at that one. So I'm looking forward to get a good exit from there and then overtake in turn 1.
Nina Gademan was saying before this weekend how excited she is about this opportunity, you know, suddenly to be racing on the F1 stage with all of these amazing drivers as well in F1 Academy has been a huge opportunity for her. And, you know, it's just amazing to see the performance coming on her first race weekend here.
Yeah, she's got a great smile. I think you can actually see her smiling through the crash helmet at the start of the red flag. She'll be in a bit of a pinch yourself moment, being P3 in an ultra competitive championship that she's come into mid-season is an amazing feat. And they're all heading out, aren't they? And I think a lot of them were already on a new set just before the red flag of tyres. So I don't think anyone else is on a set of new that I could spot there. Track position is going to be interesting. We see it a lot in F1, don't we? The hustle and bustle for track position at the final part of qualifying as we go on board again with Leah Block. There is quite a lot of water being held near the curbs. That'll be quite interesting to see how long that hangs around for diving into turn number 7. You can see how high the sand dunes are around here. Feel quite enclosed sometimes, almost feels like an amphitheatre at points. It's an amazing circuit, big snap of oversteer, but she has great track position, so she'll be very happy with this outlap, and she'll be all about setting herself up for 3 of the fastest laps she's got possible. Currently in P4, Leah Block. I think she'll be happy, but can she get to the front row? Let's listen in.
Just try and charge through the traffic.
Engineers always try to be helpful, but that was quite an obvious statement. So the engineers obviously looked at the live tracker and said, well, you've got cars behind you, so your only option is to go forward, and it's going to be difficult. 3 cars directly in front of her. I would say if she hasn't cleared the house into turn number 11, her best job is to back up and just use the gap behind her, which she's already doing. I didn't realise I had a live feed into Abby Pulling. You can see she's just trying to generate a little gap and keep the RB Visa car behind, but that car has gone past Al-Khabazi, sorry, so looking for a better gap. And this is where it's stressful as a driver, even more so if the radio isn't working. She's decided I've had to really back off, but so Leah Block again locking up into turn number 11, sorry, turn number 1 that is, isn't it, using the escape road there. So very difficult. That was her first push lap, so now she only has 2 left. One mistake has used up a third of the laps remaining, so she's looking for a safe rejoin. Really difficult in these cars to spot who's coming. Let's have a look at a replay. Expect the fronts to lock as she hits the brakes just there. You can see the front left giving up. I think it's actually as she touched the normal dry racing line, just a few % less grip as she went back over, and it just caused the car to lock up and go in too fast.
It's quite, oh, here we are, look at Jess Edgar looking a bit racy there. Oh, sorry, Aurelia Nobles managed to regain control of the car. It's interesting, though, how, you know, compared to at the start of this session, how the conditions have changed. There's a lot less spray there, but it's slightly different depending on what part of the track you're on. So I guess that, you know, again, not only have the conditions changed over the course of the session, but they're different on different parts of the track.
Yeah, and again, it's really down to how sheltered it is. Is the wind able to get to that part of the track and push the spray away that these cars chuck up in such vast amounts? You can see them actually starting to even look to cool the tyres a little bit as it gets to this greasy stage. It is possible to overheat the tyres. You're sliding around so much, as we can see Nobles doing that. The car really quite lively in these conditions, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We did see race director note looking at the red flag incident with Hamda Al-Khabazi that we said about staying flat out to the line, so that sometimes can attract a pretty strict penalty, as in all the way to losing all of your lap times in qualifying. So hopefully for her there's some data to prove she's innocent.
So Chloe Chambers has gone quicker in sector 1 1 and Sector 2, but it looks like she's lost some time there in Sector 3. She's still in P8, Nerea Marti in P5, Maya Vug P6. Let's see what Gaben can do. She's improved on her Sector 1, no improvement on Sector 2, but currently in P3. Is she going to get any closer to Abby Pulling? Can she pull it back in Sector 3?
Difficult for these guys. They're all in traffic, aren't they, at the moment? Doreen Pan has done a purple Sector 2, so fastest of anyone there. There's some improvements further down, but we're not really seeing the top 4 able to improve their lap time at the moment as we go to Chambers. Currently in turn number 7, exiting here. Careful of that exit curve that we know is slippier in these conditions. She's 11th, and after her performance the last race in Barcelona where she dominated lights to finish, I'm a little surprised that she's not able to be in the top 10 at the moment. This would make her race this afternoon a very challenging one from outside the top 10. We know overtaking is hard here, really only opportunities into turn 1 and 11. So qualifying, you need to give your all and maybe a % more to really make sure you haven't left anything on the table.
That's a shame. Chloe Chambers losing out there in Sector 2. I had high hopes for that lap, but Nerea Marti also pushing hard. Dorian Pound there, let's see what she can do. But Chloe Chambers pushing hard on the hunt, looking aggressive, trying to get that car precisely in the right place before finishing off this lap. What can she do in the final Sector 3? I don't think it's going to be a huge improvement.
So we are seeing Nobles up to P2, Chambers up to 5th as well, Marty up to 4th. So there are people on the move. This will be their last lap. Marvug up to 4th as well. Gademan's the big loser there, isn't she? Now down to 6th place. She'll be crossing lines shortly. Karen Schreiner up to 11th as well now. Alcabezi up to 9th. So it is going to be a lively last lap. I think the order we see at the moment is not the order we're going to see in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep your eyes on the times. Hamna Alcabezi there, just regaining control. Alice Powell not looking happy, shaking her head. We'll have to keep an eye on what the situation is there, but Abby Pulling is still on provisional pole position.
Yeah, I think she's shaking her head because Doreen Pan has now closed the gap to 1/10 of a second to Pulling in pole position. That was 9/10, then 5, and then 1. Pulling, the only driver in the top 10 who's not improved since the red flag restart part to this session. She is in Sector 1 at the moment for the final time. I'll keep an eye. She's 2/10 off her ultimate best in Sector 1, so this is going to be difficult for her. Doreen Pan is slightly slower too, so she may be safe from behind, but Marty and Marvug are all green in Sector 1, so this could get quite interesting and tight, I think, in the top 6.
Yeah, so the gap to the leader at the moment, 8/10 off Nerea Marti. Her fastest lap 5th, but her second fastest lap would put her 4th, so 1 place ahead on that starting grid in the second race. But this is the moment, this is our final lap, where we will find out the grids for race 1 and race 2. Can Nerea Marti improve? She went quickest in one of the sessions in Zandvoort during the test.
Just trying to work out, she's getting helped or hindered there by Chambers in front. She was helped because she is up to 3rd, takes her line. Maravug stays behind 4th, Nobles drops to 5th. Pan has taken the checker flag, so to me Pulling is safe for pole position, which she'll be very happy about, but I think Alice Powell not happy that she wasn't able to improve her time as we go on board with Lauren Voss currently P13. She did have a good Sector 1. Is this enough to lift her up and be in that sort of all-important top 10 around the difficult Zandvoort circuit?
So Loven Voss crosses the line and she remains in P13. So it is Abby Pulling. 5 back-to-back pole positions for F1 Academy. An absolute incredible display from her here in Zandvoort. It's Pulling. Alongside her will be Dorian Pat, followed by Marty in 3rd, Vug, Nobles, Gademan. What a result for our wildcard driver in 6th. Chambers starting from 7th, Leah Block 8th, Alcabezi 9th, and Jess Edgar 10th. Then Schreiner, Hausman, Lola Lovenfoss, Bustamante, De Hausch, and Alcabezi finishing those top 16 positions. A really interesting session there. Abby Pulling again once, showing her dominance, but Dorian Pat, I feel, is back on form. It's going to be a great race.
definitely so. And the wet normally does open up the gaps. Just
Dorian
naturally.
Pat, her second fastest time puts her in pole position. Dorian Pat has got pole position for race 2 in Zandvoort.
Yeah, and I think that is down to pulling not being able to improve when the track seemed at its fastest at the end. So we've got a split grid. That's exactly what we want to see. But we do have a second covering the top 9 drivers. So it is very close. Let's listen in to Abby Pulling. It'll be interesting to see how she feels. That session
Well
went.
done.
Awesome, thank you guys. Thank you. I struggled at the end for you to talk about that. There was a lot in it, but yeah, struggled with the rear, but awesome.
So she's obviously happy on pole position for race 1. Maybe doesn't know about race 2 yet. She admitted herself she struggled at the end there. Sounded like something wasn't happy about the rear of the car. So they will delve into that data and video to see what they can do to help it if the conditions stay like this for later on today.
P2 at the end, P2. It's pole position, race 2. Good job, brava.
Yeah, okay, guys.
Okay, what do you think of that reaction? Copy? Is that a slight frustration that she's not in pole position?
Yeah, she's very calm in her overall demeanour anyway, Dorian Pan. But yeah, almost a bit despondent I felt there. Even with the pick-me-up from the engineer saying pole for race 2, she obviously wants to delve into that a little more. Maybe feels like she had enough to be pole in both races would be my take from that.
Yeah, but it is great to see that Dorian Pat is back challenging Abby Pulling at the top. Nuria Marti also a great result from her starting on in P3. That's equals her best starting position, which she had in Barcelona, also P3. Maya Vug, again, a great result for her. I think we saw she started from P3 in the earlier races in Saudi Arabia, but hasn't been on such good qualifying form since. So a good resurgence from her as well.
Yeah, really, really good. And let's get into the second half of the season now. Drivers are trying to find their form that's going to lift them up the championship order. It's really the last chance to kind of change the tide as we see Susie Wolf, the series director, talking to one of the team members potentially about how that session went for them. But it's such a good job, isn't it, that F1 Academy do to have a partnership with every single one of the 10 F1 teams, and that is no mean feat to organise that and get them all really buying in to the whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and they really do come down and support. They are properly involved on every level of F1 Academy. And of course, you've also got huge sponsors, brands involved, such as Tommy Hilfiger, Puma and Charlotte Tilbury as well. So it really has, you know, it's on a global stage now, F1 Academy, and the sort of the change that we've seen since last season has been absolutely huge, and it is a brilliant proving ground now. We got the fans, they're waving, we see you, we can't wave back, or actually I am waving back, you just can't see it. But it looks like it's drying up a little bit there. The rain is slowly coming to an end, and we will get to find out very soon what happens in the first race of the weekend here in Zandvoort. It's going to be a really exciting one. I mean, can Dorian Pat challenge Abby Pulling at the start of this race? We've seen how important the start of the race is. I mean, Chloe Chambers took the lead from Pulling last time out and won the race from her brilliant start. So, you know, it is where the race can be won or lost.
Yeah, and Zandvoort's an interesting start because you have a very tight turn 1. So even from a standing start, the cars will be approaching at 200 kilometers an hour, high in 5th gear, and have to go all the way down to 2nd potentially at the start. So it does open up a long brake zone, and we've seen people charge in there all weekend, haven't we? Missing braking points, having to take the escape road. So it'll be interesting to see if that carries on into the start of the race. But yeah, Zandvoort, the start is always lively, and I think we're going to see some big action there later.
The start might be lively, so is the crowd. Despite the challenging conditions, we're loving it. Right, let's take a look at the final classification for the qualifying results. This will be how the grid looks in race 1. Abby Pulling, her 5th pole position, consecutive pole of the season. Dorian Pat in 2nd. Nuria Marti there will be on the 2nd row of the grid in 3rd. The Ferrari driver, Maya Vug in 4th. Aurelia Nobles for Puma in 5th. Nina Gabeman, the wild card, starting in 6th. The best result for a wildcard driver we've seen. Chloe Chambers 7th, Leah Block 8th, Hamda Al-Qabizi 9th, and Jess Edgar for American Express will be starting from 10th. Carrie Schreiner for Kickstarter in 11th, Tina Houseman for Aston Martin 12th, Lola Lovin-Foss for Charlotte Tilbury 13th, Bianca Bustamante, hugely disappointing session for her after that spin in 14th, Emily de Hausch in 15th, and Amna Al-Khawazi will be starting at the back in 16th. Well, there you have it. That is how our grid will be looking ahead of our first race here in Zandvoort this afternoon. Do join us to find out, can Abby Pulling continue her dominance, or will her biggest championship rival, Dorian Pin, manage to take the lead? We will see you there to find out.